Hi and welcome to my channel. I'm sitting in front of my bed, which means it is video time. Yay! So today's video is targeted at people who either are interested in learning Russian but haven't started yet, or are just about to get started, or just started. So basically everyone who has pretty much zero experience with Russian but really wants to learn Russian and just isn't necessarily quite sure how to start, where to start, what to do. These are the kind of questions that I want to try and answer with this video. I think that the majority of these steps are going to be pretty obvious and self-explanatory, but the point of this video is to point you towards specific resources that I think are very helpful and, to just give you some sort of starting point and just a rough order of doing things that you can stick to. I'll be trying to provide you with at least 2 or 3 resources for every step, so you will be able to make a choice yourself, like what you would rather use, what you'd rather work with. And yeah, let's get started with the first step to learning Russian. So the first step to learning Russian is, well, you might be able to guess it, it's learning Cyrillic. Yes. I've seen people wondering about whether or not they should learn it, and the answer is very clearly yes. Yes, you have to learn it. It is vital to learning Russian. You can learn Cyrillic everywhere. I mean, there's tons of resources for learning Cyrillic, but if you want to know what I specifically used when I first started Russian, it was the website Russian for Everyone. They have a list of all the Cyrillic letters with pronunciation example, word examples, an example of a handwritten letter, so you can see what it looks like in cursive, and just all around I feel like that is a really great resource to learn Cyrillic. So you can find the link to that down below. So step 2 is pronunciation. Russian pronunciation can be quite difficult for beginners, especially because there are quite a few sounds that are either difficult to distinguish or difficult to pronounce yourself, especially if your own native language does not use these sounds. So for that, you can either take the really technical route and look at these video courses by Dr. Curtis Ford, who is I think, Slavic linguistics professor at the University of something, I don't know, somewhere in California, I think. He has tons of videos about Russian grammar, but they're very technical. So if you're more on the technical side, go for that. If not, there is one video that I found that I thought looked quite interesting. The video is a bit questionable, like the graphics and stuff, but what the guy says is really helpful, and if you just sit through this 20-minute video and try to internalize some of it, then you will be well on your way. Also, it's definitely a very good idea to listen to a lot of Russian stuff, so maybe Russian music, or just listen to the Russian news in the background just to get used to how the language sounds, just to try and kind of train your brain to distinguish the sounds themselves. And obviously you won't understand anything yet, but that's not the point of this exercise. So yeah, pronunciation is very, very, very important, because if you start pronouncing something wrong from the very beginning and you will continue making this mistake, it will be very hard to fix later on. So getting it right from the very beginning is kind of important. However, don't worry about your accent too much, because as they say, accents just show where you come from. It's very difficult to perfect your accent, and it should not be something that you need to focus on from the very beginning. Just focus on pronouncing things correctly and, just learning Russian. Step number 3, vocabulary. So yes, the next thing that I would suggest you to do is learn vocabulary. I would say that you should learn the vocabulary before getting started with grammar, because if you learn a certain number of words, let's just say if you learn 100 words, roughly equally divided between like nouns, verbs, and adjectives, and then you dive into grammar, you will be able to use the words you've already learned to make your own example sentences for the grammar rules that you learn, which I think is really important. So I would suggest that you just focus on vocabulary for maybe, I don't know, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, however long you think you will need to get just a little bit of a base to, kind of build on. And for that, I would recommend you either use Memrise. I like their old Russian 1 course a lot. They have since changed it. I don't like the new course as much, but I will link the old Russian 1 course below. In general, I do like the Memrise vocabulary courses. I think they teach you a lot of really useful vocabulary. So that's for if you want to take a more guided approach. And then there's also a website called Open Russian, which has frequency lists for nouns, verbs, adjectives, and I think like a fourth category. I don't remember the category. They provide pronunciation samples for all the words. However, I noticed that at least on the very first page there was one word where they put a wrong sound file. It was the Russian word for I, where they put the plural instead of the singular. Besides that, it is a solid resource if you just want to learn a bunch of common words. However, I do not necessarily recommend this approach. Learning a lot of stuff out of context before you're able to really immerse yourself in the language is not that great of a thing to do. Step number 4, as soon as you feel like you've kind of learned and internalized enough vocabulary, you should move on to grammar. Again, I have one resource for you, which is if you want a more structured, a more guided approach, which is an online Russian textbook that someone on Twitter has sent me the link to. Thank you, Sam. Actually, I've not used it, but I looked through it. It looks really good, very structured, very well laid out, but very well thought out, and all of the texts have audio files to go with them, so you can listen to the dialogues and all of that. And also all of the text and all of the words have stress marks, which is a really, really great thing for beginners. So yeah, if you want to check that out, you can find the link in the description. And then if you're into structure but you don't necessarily want to follow a textbook, I have another website for you. It is called Learn Russian Step by Step. They have a lot of grammar lessons all in like their own kind of order, and you can go through these. A lot of them, especially later on, well, just not the very first 3 lessons, have some sort of exercise that you can complete, and then you can find the solution in the next lesson. So that is for if you do want some structure, but you also want to be able to kind of maybe pick and choose what grammar points you want to do. And then if you're like me, so when I started learning Russian, I tried to find some good beginner textbooks and I just didn't find anything that I liked. I'll be talking about textbooks in an upcoming video, but yeah, if you are like me and you just kind of want to go wild, do random stuff, then I also have a website for you. It is called russianlearn.com, which is where I learned most of my basic grammar, like noun declension, adjective declension, all of the, all of the case declensions. That's where I learned it. It is definitely more of a recommendation if you've already learned another language, or if you're somewhat familiar with language learning and you're familiar with how grammar works and what you have to do to learn a language. So yeah, that's kind of, you're more of like a free spirit, I guess. And then step number 5 isn't really a step. It's more like a prerequisite or something that's very important to keep in mind. Find something that you love that is in Russian. Whether it be Russian music, a Russian TV show, Russian movies, Russian history, like you're a history buff and you just want to learn about Russian history in Russian. Or for example, if you're really into Russian literature and you want to be able to read the classics in the original language, that's something that keeps you motivated. For me, it was Russian music. I wasn't interested in Russian at all until I heard a Russian song. When I heard it for the first time, I was like, this is a terrible song. Second time, I still didn't like it. Third time, it kind of ruined me. Fourth time, I liked it a lot. 5th time, I loved it, and that's what got me into Russian in the first place, because I really liked that song. Then I started listening to more songs. I loved that artist. I found more artists that I loved, and that's something that always kept me going. Now, obviously, there are tons of things that I love that are in Russian that keep me going. For example, for TV shows, I love Sluga Naroda, which if you have not heard of it, that's the Ukrainian TV show that Zelensky, the current Ukrainian president, plays the president of Ukraine before he became president, which is absolutely hilarious TV show, and I can recommend it as soon as you're like at a higher level, because it's definitely very difficult, very political. And yeah, obviously Russian books. I love so many things about Russian, and I think that if you don't have something that you love, something that keeps you motivated, then it will be really, really hard to learn a language. This is not just the case for Russian, but for every language that you may want to learn. You need to find something that keeps you going, because otherwise it's not going to work out, unless someone forces you to for like school or work, but I just hope that that is not the case. So yeah, find something that keeps you going. So if you are still with me right now, I hope that these tips helped you. I hope that I managed to provide you with a starting point for your Russian studies, and I wish you all the luck in the world to keep going and, you know, go out there, learn this language. It is a really enriching experience, and my life has changed a lot because of this decision that I made, and I hope that it will also change your life for the better. Who knows? So yeah, thank you very much for watching. Again, good luck, and yeah, see you in my next video, which will probably not be about Russian, but one of my next videos will be a 5 tips for Russian beginners that have already kind of gone through the stuff that I've mentioned in this video. So yeah, stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for more Russian content, Russian beginner content, all that kind of stuff, and yeah, bye.